Okay, so I just want to make this little short vid on pencils for beginners and anyone who's been sketching for a while, but they're still not quite it can be a bit confusing about numbers on pencils and what we use them for and how useful they are. So it's very useful as a beginner to look at what things are made of and what they specifically used for, and have a little bit more knowledge about the materials you're using. It can really be helpful when you're starting to do some artwork. So what we remember from school is the 2B. So we have a 2B pencil here, 2B. And then we have darker pencils, which we've got a 3B. So 3B, and all that means is that has a bit more graphite than that. So we get a bit darker, and we can go right up to I think this is a 6B. So with the same pressure, I should be able to get a darker mark. You can just about see that that's a bit darker than that. But obviously how you handle your pencil, the pressure from your hand, how you're working, affects everything as well. And then on the other side of that, we've got these H pencils, which people get confused about. So this is probably a bit more clay and a bit less graphite. So this is a HB. So if I write on here with the same pressure, HB, you can see there's quite a lot less graphite deposited. And this one is a 2H. So I write on here 2H. That should be a bit less than that, but it's not much in it. But actually this goes up to 9. So you can have a 9H, which really should be quite a hard pencil. So it really means that if you're sketching something out and you're not quite sure, you're at the beginning of your sketch, you don't want to start with a 6B. Look at the amount of graphite I've deposited. You start with a HB or a 2H, and then I'm still sketching, but I haven't deposited much graphite, which is very useful for me from starting out. And I pick up my Kneadable Rubber. Now this is quite handy, rather than the rubber that you get, the eraser you get that's just a general one from the store. They take off the paper and they take off a lot of bits, and they're quite messy. This one, you pull a little bit off, it's like putty, it's called putty, it feels like putty in your hand, you move it around. If I go to take this out, you see how easily that will come out really, really quick. If I go to the 6B mark that I made, it'll still come out, but can you see with the same pressure, there's still quite a lot of marks left. You can move that along, you move this around, because the graphite's all been collected on the bit of eraser and it's off the page, but it hasn't disturbed the paper. And I can go over it again and put quite a bit of pressure from my hand. If I work on that, I can take that off, but it's much harder. So there's a reason why we use that. The other thing you'll need if you're using this type of pencil is a pencil sharpener. I like these because they're just tidy, convenient. I use it, empty it when I'm ready. But this sort of thing is perfectly fine from any newsagent or art store or wherever. It's perfectly fine, does the same job. So really you just need some kind of eraser, pencil sharpener, and I've got 5 pencils, but you could just start out with one H pencil, maybe a HB or a 2H, a 2B, and maybe a 3 or a 4B. So I've got a 3B, so 3 pencils, 3B, 2B and a HB. That will give you some variety in marks. So just put those to the side. So obviously your pressure of your hand affects things as well, but let's just look at this. With light pressure, that's my 3B. With light pressure, that's my 2B. With light pressure, that's my HB. It's quite different. This one is very different. So we use it for different purposes. If I'm going to make a long pencil sketch, which I would recommend you try and do a pencil sketch, you will get to know what you can get out of your pencils, and they're not just left to be the purulation or something you don't pay much attention to. You can get almost any texture from a pencil if you work it through. So they do make beautiful artworks, but it's a little bit of patience, so you might do an A4 or a smaller artwork with it. But you will need to look at your pencil pressure, your hand pressure, how you're using the pencil and different marks. So I'm just going to demonstrate some different marks to remind us that they can do different things as well. So we're always using the tip but we can use the flat part. This is a bit tricky, but it's worth looking at. You just get this whole part on the paper and then drag it across. Can you see that? And it gets a totally different mark. This paper is slightly textured, but I would recommend that you use cartridge paper, medium or heavyweight. Lightweight is okay, or medium as well. But if you use a very slippy paper and you want to get some texture, and it won't quite take, so a medium weight cartridge has a little bit of texture to it, so you can take a little bit of texture onto your drawing. Just quickly show you that this is a drawing now just starting to lay out, and it's from a sketch, which is this one, which was a pencil sketch, but then I put some wash on it, some watercolour, but it can be a pencil sketch. So if I pick up my H pencil, HB, and I want to sketch this out, but I'm not quite sure where I want things, so I'm just going carefully around the edges. And if I suddenly decide that window is not in the right place, take my eraser, go right across that. It's really quick and easy because there isn't a lot of graphite on there, and I can just replace that mark, just replace it because I think it might not be in the right place or I want to move it for some reason. Then when I've got my sketch laid out with my light pencil, maybe I'll go on to my 2B, because now I know that I've got things where I want them. So I'll just darken it so you can see the sketch a bit more. 2B, a little bit more pressure, and then I can go going around the windows and the doors and the roof. The things that I've decided they are in the place where I want them to be. The edge of the tree, I've got the outline in a very light pencil. I'll go over it now in a 2B, and the sign and a few other things. I've got some people at the front here. I'm going to work this up. And then the other thing you can do with this, which is really nice with a pencil, is there's all types of textures. And on here I've got the tree bark. I'm going to put some of that in dark. And then I might be able to go over it with some lines, start getting some real texture and impressions of the tree. I've got a window here, so I might need to put some light marks there. And I've got some brickwork, which requires different kind of texturing, all different kind of levels and marks to really bring out the brickwork. You can use a blending stick. I'm using my finger, but you can use a blending stick to take that kind of blending across. And then we can use the different marks here. We haven't got a thatched roof on this one, it was actually a brick roof, but you can still work in some of that markings. And there's lots of other textures. People sitting here, so they're going to have clothes that are going to be cloth textured, so you can work on how to do that with the pencil. They're sitting on a stone seat, so that needs a bit of texture work up. And then around the trees is lots of going to be branches with leaves. They will need to be outlined, but then they can be textured. And there'll be a bit of grass around as well, coming up from here and there. So these things you can, I've only got my 2B pencil now, but I've got my hand pressure that I can vary, just vary it to get light lines and dark lines. But as I go down in the sketch, if there's some, getting near the end of the sketch, some areas that I want to be really dark, I've taken my 6B and I'm going into that, see, in between the tree where it would be a bit darker. There's not so much light, it's a bit of a darker area. I can shade that really down. I'm not putting a lot of pressure really, but it's taking up a lot of graphite because it's a 6B pencil. There's a lot of graphite coming off. And also things that are in the foreground, like the tree, will be probably a little bit darker. I'm using the tip there, but I can put that on its side and use the side and get some shade start coming up from there. Okay, so that's just a very, very quick idea of how to use a pencil. I'll do another one where we build up this sketch as a pencil sketch, and you'll see all the different levels of shading. Okay.